My name is Caroline Poynton and I am recording Braco from YouTube today. I am not copywriting it, I am paying attention because this is pretty cool. This honestly talks into a lot of things about a lot of people in the government and what they're not doing. So my name is Caroline Poynton. I'm from Manchester in Bury.
They don't care about you. And I
They
think
don't
that is
care
something that
about
people
us, they
need to
bloody
understand.
don't.
They don't care about you. And I think that is something that people need to understand. They don't care about you. When they're making policy changes, you think they're doing that because they care about John or Mark that works at the off license? They don't give a damn about
They
you.
don't give a fuck about anyone.
Flags, am I racist?
There's nothing wrong with raising the flag, as I said before.
What do you
Am I
think
racist? I'm not racist.
They don't really see England as their home country. They see it as a transitory nation whereby they can come in and come out as they please.
Yeah, do what they
take
want.
what they can.
Yeah,
leave,
get what they want.
and
go.
take their money out and send their money back home to wherever country they came from.
I think it's understandable. We're not going nowhere. We are here to stay. Like I said, we're not here to take part. We're here to take over.
But you're asking for chaos, personally. If you keep this up, there's going to be civil uprising in this country. And as I say, it's got nothing to do with race and everything to do with the quality of life. You've got energy crises going on and people can't even afford to pay their bills. And there's just a lot of issues here that are under pressure. On top of that, we've got the migratory issues as well. We can't just have an open border and allow people to come in and do as they do without oversight and without some kind of imbalance going on, which is exactly what's
And that's
happening now.
King Charles's fault and the rest of them all
The
together.
Conservatives have definitely exacerbated the issue, but the problem is with the Conservative and Labour Party now is that they're cut from the same cloth. They're both the same. If you look at their policies and their manifesto, they're basically the same thing.
It's all the same bullshit.
Over the past 2 decades, and we're looking at 2 forms of socialist parties
they've all
right now. That's what they
fucked up
are,
and
which
it's
is
all
why we've
bullshit.
seen the emergence of reform.
We will not be cowed. We will not be silenced by anybody. We are the British people and we want a common sense government back in charge of our country. We're going to fight for it and we are going to win.
Here's another one. What do you think about the money we're giving away to Ukraine?
You have to remember, the funding that we are putting up for the Ukraine, as well as the United States, someone's getting back-end money off of that.
Yep. Someone got back-end money off the fucking deal we did with you under all our fucking money as well. And nobody even went.
You've been silenced for
We
a
didn't
very long
fucking get
and
any
every time
money
you
in
try to
English
use
off
this
back off. We didn't really get anything. We couldn't even send that cunt back. That stabbed them kids in.
what your kids should learn.
And so we've gone to that and sent his parents back to you under. I don't understand why. Why can't we send his parents back to you under?
Not to report the facts to you.
Because they were criminals in the first place. That's exactly why.
Be careful.
They should have never been allowed here in the first place. Then they're half criminals. They're not
These
fucking
politicians who
kids.
meant to protect you, they're out there smashing your head on the ground. And no jail time for them. This world
No jail time for any of them
for a
bastards.
very long time, and it's time to shine a light on the truth and advocate for
They
justice.
don't lose
We
their
can
kids,
make
they
the
don't get
nation
jail
great. If we
time,
don't
do they?
stand up and advocate for justice, then we certainly won't make
Don't
this
get
nation
fucked
great
up.
again. So we have to create a place for that, a place that can contribute to a more informed society. And that place is Next Frontier Media.
Apart from whatever they fucking want.
I don't know if you're familiar with what's going on in the UK, but because the last video I've seen of you, you seem very pissed off of what's going on.
Yeah, I'll definitely say it's a frustration, yeah, sure.
And
Pissed off, yeah,
you
mate.
seem like you're not a person that's into politics, and you don't really talk about it as much compared to what you've been talking about in your videos. But recently, the last 5 videos of yours, it's been more of like a patriotic, defend the flag and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the last 2 videos at least, yeah. I mean, the other stuff is political, but it's with regards to a completely different subject matter, so it's not entirely the same thing.
Yeah. So there's a lot. This movement is happening across the country. More and more people are becoming aware of what's going on in the country. And why is that anyway? How come the people now trying to get involved today?
I think, to be honest with you, it's just over time. I think if you put something under pressure, eventually there's going to be a reaction. And I think a lot of people are just coming out of the woodwork because they're sick and tired of how things are being run and how their voice isn't being heard. I think it's a combination of people feeling disenfranchised and not proportionately represented. And as a result of that, if you're going to alienate the entire population of the country of people that grew up with what I said in the video about British values, they're going to start feeling like they're just being ignored. And then now we're seeing the results of that in all shapes and forms, by the way, not just people that are sensible, but you're also going to see more extreme right views on all these issues as well, which is something to worry about too. And primarily that's to do with the misproportional way that we vote at the moment, the voting system that's currently in place, isn't very effective for immediate
not
change
very good.
because
It's
it
all a
protects the
fucking
existing
con.
administration
That's why
that's
no one
currently in.
wants to
So
vote,
we're going to have a
because we know
delayed
it's a
fuse
load
here,
of
where by the
lies.
end of this 4-year
It's all
term
a
of Keir
lying
Starmer, I think there's going to
bastards.
be a lot of outrage, and you're going to have far more people swaying to the
There
extreme
is
right
no
because they're
vote.
not being heard. So
They're
they're just going to get more and more frustrated,
Yeah,
and that's
people
going to
don't not
compound on
getting
itself, I
heard.
think. So
There
I
is
think
no
it's just going to get a lot
votes.
worse, to be honest.
King
Yeah,
Charles and the rest
that's
of
the
them are all
thing,
in
right?
it
Because
together.
when I was young, I didn't see none of these. I was never interested in going out there and voting. Politics, my dad used to talk about it every time, even till today. I probably say he's the one that got me involved. Now, when I seen back then, it was actually, I would probably say it's 2017, there was not that many things happening. But in today's time, it seemed like a big change has happened.
Yeah, compared to them, maybe.
Do you think the public people just close their eyes and they're just walking up like now this is happening and they need to
I think after the coronavirus, everybody started to
like we just got
hit
very quick.
Yeah, well, no, the thing is, it's not quick. I just think that as I say, you put the frog in hot water and you slowly boil it. The frog will sit there
It's been going on
boil
for
to death.
ages, a long
I just think that
time.
we're at boiling point right now
Not
because
seen
these
it
things aren't being
until now.
addressed. You're seeing people like me that
Till
don't
after
really dive into this
coronavirus,
stuff.
you started to see the cracks. Everybody starts to see all the cracks
it's
in everything
visible
after
when you go out and you see
coronavirus.
what's going on. You see the crime that's being committed, and you see the people on the other end of that. It doesn't require any form of intellect to work that out. It's very obvious what's going on, and it's not being addressed, and that's why we're seeing
never been addressed.
A rising number of people shouting out. I mean, I'm genuinely shocked by the response from my video.
Never been addressed. Nothing's ever been correctly addressed.
That they're in complete agreement with me, and
not for a very, very long time after the First World War. This is where it all started to go wrong.
This is a national issue for anyone that grows up in this country. So it's a problem for everybody. It's not just a minority.
Right. And speaking to that point, right? The biggest issue that's happening right now, in my perspective, and probably likely a lot of people, is the segregation of these cultures, like having a culture here and here and here and here. It's like we're living in a tribal world now. What do you think is happening, and where do you think is the end of this? Because surely it's not the best thing we're doing right now, as we can see. So what's the worst thing that can happen?
I think personally, with regards to that, I think that's primarily to do with our soft policies and this indoctrination. As I said before, raising the British flag is some form of anti-Semitic behaviour or some kind of digressive attitude, which is completely wrong. There's nothing wrong with raising the flag, as I said before, but we've gotten to a point now where anything mentioned about being British or sort of
not
reinforcing values in that nature is considered digressive and racist.
It's aggressive and racist. Anything fucking not being Islam, that's King Charles's fault.
Different
all that's King
cultures
Charles
being allowed to embrace their own thing before respecting
he's the one that's
the place where they're living first. Which is why there's not been any oversight over those things. Which is why it's been able to grow the way it has.
Right.
A lot.
So, sticking with that as well, you see,
we've got a lot of research on that.
These, I don't know, the extremists, right? Because you mentioned about the far right. We don't want to get that far because there's going to be a lot of chaos. And we also don't want to do this much to the acceptance into whatever thing the people are doing. Because in my perspective, because I've met a lot of people in my life, because I used to do door to door, so I've met a lot of patrons out there that served in this country. They went out there in their life to serve for this land and protecting the flag. But today's world, we're seeing young men going out there, young girls going out there and burning the flag. So my question is, do you think it's an immigration problem, or is it just
an immigration
the way
problem?
We just let them not integrate to our culture and our value?
No, it's an immigration problem.
Want them to come in and have a part of their Great Britain for themselves.
No, it's definitely an immigration problem.
Do you think that's the problem, or do you think it's just the people that we bring in?
Than what it's not.
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a combination of soft policy on that particular issue and enabling as well. But I also think that because of our immigration policies, it's reinforcing other people to do the same thing and abuse the system to their advantage.
Yeah.
So they don't really see England as their home country. They see it as a transitory nation whereby they can come in and come out as they please,
and do
take what they can, leave, and take their money out and send their money back home to wherever country they came from. So I think we're on a very slippery slope because we are turning into a transitory nation where people are just passing through, using it for what they can, and then going about their business. But again, it's not reinforced. And as I say,
Yeah,
the
it's
more
not
that
reinforced. There we go.
we don't address these issues and allow
So they
people
don't
to do
address
as
it,
they
so that's
please
why it's
without
carried
enforcing our
on and
own
carried
local
on.
law
So that's
and
their
respecting our
fault, the
local
government
culture,
and the king.
without it being looked
All
upon as some
their
kind of
faults.
digressive movement. It's
Why?
just going to keep escalating and getting worse
What
for sure.
for?
I've noticed online
What
a lot
really
of
for? I
slightly
mean, that's the
racism
question. That's
in
the
right now.
answer.
And
The
I think
answer.
we
The
kind of
question
need to
is
be
what
careful with that.
for?
And I also think there's a lot of Islamophobia that's going
Yeah,
around. I think we also
why?
need to be careful with that. How can we draw a
We
line
don't
of
need to be
having these
careful
guys
at
to
all.
also stimulate with these guys and just have one culture as a country? Like, hey, we speak English here and we do this here, we respect this flag, and if something was to happen to this country, we go and fight for this country. How can we change that? Because it seems like if something was to happen to this country, most people would just run away because they don't have the best interest in this country. And where did we go wrong with this?
I think personally with that issue, again, that is reminding people when they come here that this is how we do things here. And, you know, when I moved, because I lived in America for 10 years, and the first thing I received when getting my visa was a document that entailed all the things that go on within American culture and how to assimilate to that culture if you're living and working there. It was an official document from the government that they send you when you get a visa package. I don't know if we do that here in the UK or
they don't do anything like that here. They just let any bastard in. They've been harpering criminals all their life.
That doesn't seem to be the
They're
case.
letting
As I
criminals
say,
out of jail. They're harpering
certainly
them.
with the left-leaning governments we
In this
have,
country.
that their soft policy reinforces
no
that
soft
kind of
policy,
narrative,
mate. They're
whereby
harpering criminals.
people aren't told, okay, if you're coming here, this is how we do things.
This is how
Here's
we
the
do
rule book of
things
what
in
we
this
do
country.
here.
Make
Bear in
money
mind, we're
off
a Christian nation.
criminals.
Some people
Bear
would argue
in
it's
mind.
Protestant and a little bit of Catholic. I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. But overall, Anglo-Saxon, Western European, that's how we do things.
That's how they do it
That's all just been
nowadays.
shoved to the side and disregarded. Which is why, as I say, people are allowed to do what they want to do, and in the manner that they do it in.
Yeah, but some people might argue that it's being set up that way, because when an immigrant comes in from, let's say, Iran or let's say Pakistan, they usually get put in an area where there's more Pakistanis there, or they get put in an area where there's more Iranians there, which creates this a little bond. Why? It's like, we own this road and we own this road, and anybody that try to walk past is trespassing our little mini country inside.
I see what you mean. So like promoting segregation,
So it's a setup from the
I agree. No, I think that there is definitely isolated pockets of communities where you only see certain types of people living there. I think that's quite inherent in any Western nation. I think in fact the Americans are worse for doing that. We integrate a bit better than the Americans, who are a bit more progressive than they are in that regard. But again, if you go to somewhere like Birmingham,
Birmingham's a no-go area. In fact, nowhere's a go area in England anymore. I don't go out the fucking Bury.
Other cities outside
I don't go out Bury to
and
find
certainly in
out.
some parts of London as well, where there's not much of this integration going on, or the adoption of the British culture.
Zones. Well, I'm in one. They've already made
Again, it's a combination of factors. I don't think it's down to one thing, but I do think that these changes will be looked at in the future and go, well, you know, if we addressed this earlier on, this wouldn't have been an issue, and there would have been more assimilation going on.
If they addressed it earlier on, this wouldn't have been issues, would it? But they didn't. They just fucked up.
And I always experienced
that to Islam, and they bowed down and they changed the King Charles changed his fucking religion, and they all started changing religions.
Common ground
and
where
the
everyone
common
was
ground wasn't any because they all fucking bowed down to it.
That was set in stone. There was no sort of identity politics as there is now. There was no sort of discussion over are you a boy or a girl? There was none of that. The very basics of what we need to conform and to act in a sensible, respectable way.
Tony Blair came in and they opened the borders.
When you care about this country, you're treated it bad by the law enforcement. But when you don't care about this country, and it's all about race, the law enforcement appears to bend over you. Especially in the incidents
it has never been the same.
And also the incidents that happened 2 days ago or a day ago in Manchester Airport, and where the police
started 97, 96.
Yeah, I think that's blown out of context. To be honest with you, we don't know the full story of what happened at Manchester Airport. I can't speak on a head situation, but I know, given that I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, that
that's what I can remember.
There's this attitude towards police that most of them are inherently racist or seem to have some kind of ilk towards certain people from certain
So I'm
places.
going to say
That isn't the case at all. In
90s
fact, we have one of the most
is when it started to all
professionally
change.
trained police forces in the world compared to most other
93
nations. I can tell you this:
to
if you went to
96
some parts of Eastern
is when
Europe,
King
Eastern
Charles
Bloc Europe,
changed his
where most
religion.
like Slavic nations, there's none of this nonsense.
And
There's none of
since
this
then, it's
PC
gone
culture.
worse
They
and
will deal
worse.
with you hands down. It doesn't matter what you've done. If
Well, I
you're
was
on
going to
the
say
wrong side of the law, they will
immigration
deal
and
with you. It
everything's
doesn't matter
gone
what they
worse
do
and
to you.
worse. The crimes,
So we've got this.
everything's
How
gone
come there's
worse
a
and
line,
worse
though?
since then.
Like, let's say if
Nothing's
somebody,
gone right
let's say a
since then.
Brit-
Think
literally
about
a
it.
soldier got stabbed 70 times.
Yeah, and the
in
guy
front
got
of his
fucked
family.
off because of mental health
Right,
issues,
that's the
which we
person
could
that
use
risked
the
his life
assisted
to
dying
defend
bill for.
the flag and defend
That should be
the
assisted
land.
dying
So
bill
we
for
can
that.
have the freedom that we have. And
Absolutely.
guess
It's not
what?
called the
The
death
media
penalty
comes
anymore.
out
We use
and
the
tries to
assisted dying
defend the
bill because
person
they've
that
got
did it
severe
with
mental
mental health
issues.
issues,
Yeah.
which is kind of
Yeah.
silly, right? But
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
if
absolutely.
something else happens on that side, they
Right.
happen to just run away
Fair
and
enough.
leave it
Yeah, they
alone.
run away.
It's what do you think of that? Because for me, it's kind of annoying, especially for the.
It's not annoying me.
especially on
It's
Yeah.
the white side,
basically
because a lot
they
of
haven't
white
done the
people
they
friends,
haven't
which
give
obviously
basically they
love
haven't give the punishment for
respect.
what the person has
And I
done.
feel like they're not being put in first as well.
Yeah, I think
None
that
of them, not
this is to
King
do with.
Charles,
I think
none of
that,
the
again, I
government.
think this is very much to do with
They're all
both culture
cowering,
and-
they're all
and
hiding. That
feels
King Charles
before
trying
we
to come
all
out
start
now
to
and go
say.
on.
I
I
think
don't
there's
know
a
what
lot
he's
of
going
stuff
on
going
for now. It's already
whereby
caused the
people
bullshit by doing
address how
Sadiq
you
Khan
feel
and
first and your mental
whatever
state
else.
of mind before actually addressing the real issue. And if I may, I
I
just
was
want to
going
go
to
back to
say
this
by
situation
never
with the Manchester
addressing the
Airport.
real issues. They
All
don't
you
ever
heard, if you
address
listen
the
to it
real
carefully,
issues.
is
The government.
the words, he
And
ain't
the
done
king,
nothing, he ain't
they
done
run away
nothing, he
from
hasn't
it.
done nothing. That's always the case.
Yeah.
There's no
Right.
reason,
And then
and
they
the
tell
argument for
people
the
like
people
me
that were
that
being
I'm
dealt
running
with
away, I'm
was
not
that
running
the
away from
police
my
officer was
issues.
harassing the mother. No,
I'm trying
there's
to
no
address
reason
my
for police to
issues.
harass somebody or do anything of that nature whatsoever.
Like you say,
They were
what
clearly
I'm
doing their
trying
job.
to.
They obviously felt that these people were doing something
In
suspect,
this
so
way,
they
this is the way
investigated
I'm
and they pushed.
addressing
Now,
the
at an
issue.
airport, there are certain policies
By
that have to
listening
go
and
by for police
recording
whereby
this
they
and
can
putting my
enforce
own comment,
more
my own speech in there.
more dominance over these situations because it's an airport. Okay, if it was on the street, it's a different situation. But because it's in a
I'm not
very
talking to him, I'm just talking.
sensitive area, they need to address it quickly and deal with it. These are armed police, by the way,
Because
so they're even more highly
some of
trained
what
than the
they're
ones that don't
saying
have guns.
is what I've been saying
So-
for a very long
in
time.
the grand scheme of things, I think that what they were doing was completely justified, but we don't have the full
He's got
picture, so it's not
something
fair
to
to
do
go,
with
oh,
this
this police was
open
just
borders and
abusing
illegal
someone.
immigrants.
Because that's not
Because
how
he was
police
worried about
operate in this
them going to
country.
Yolanda and
It's just
everything.
simply not true. That is
Yeah.
not the case.
You know,
and as I
and
said
we
before,
paid
it's
for that
ammunition,
thing. We
certainly
paid
for the
for
left,
one,
at least,
we paid,
to
God
use
knows
this
how much we've
as
paid.
as a scapegoat
As
to
a
allow
scapegoat.
current policies to stay as they are,
Yeah,
so that we can
to allow
allow
them to stay as they
the
are,
free
because
movement
they're
of
King Charles.
immigration, whether it's legal or not, within this country, to
whatever
keep doing
else.
what they're doing without anyone standing up to it.
Yeah.
And in this case, when you do, you're labelled a racist or a bigot.
Yeah.
So it's surrounded in a lot of politics, I think,
Yeah.
that particular issue.
So sticking with
politics.
I want to stick on this
whatever
topic
you
here because
say,
it is the one that when you speak about it, you're always labelled as
the law.
you know,
I'm not
racist.
breaking the
Instead
law.
of
Yeah.
all,
I have
all
not
these
called
words
them
that they just
said
throw out
anything
there,
about
which
call you
is
any
kind of
face, which
making
is
the word mean
politically.
less now. But what
I
do you
thought
think of
politically out
the
about
organization
about
that is
changing
known as a
religion.
Muslim voting or the Brotherhood?
Okay, so yeah, so
And halal
obviously,
meat
as we
and
know,
everything
there's
else
a
he's
growing
done.
number of
Gives it in
people
Khan,
that want to
and
represent
the wife gives it
Islam
what for?
in the House of
Exactly,
Commons,
Islam.
and so
King
and that number
Charles
is growing
pins him
very,
down
very
to
rapidly,
Islam.
which I think is an area of concern that I think
Not
needs to be
just the
addressed
government.
very quickly.
King Charles going on at
Certainly
the government
given
now. There's no point going on at the government.
the, dare I say, the subjective views that some people act upon when it comes to Islam and what they think they're doing in the name of Allah,
So this is
for
why they're
example.
never going
It's
to
a very
act upon it,
subjective area.
because they're all in this
And you know, if you look at the Quran and you look at some of the verses in there, some of it is you know, it's sort of very Old Testament stuff that I don't think applies to the 21st century, if you ask me. But that is something that needs government
It's like the Bible.
oversight immediately
Some of the
before
Bible
that is
doesn't
allowed
now
to
apply.
grow
It doesn't
uncontrollably.
apply to
Because
it
what you
now.
don't want to do is have a growing number of people enforcing the law of Islam in a Christian nation, when we forget that the vast majority of people in this nation are still very much indigenous and Caucasian or second or third generation, such as myself. So if you choose to alienate those people, there will be a civil uprising. You're not going to be allowed to just have that happen without oversight and people going, hang on a minute, let's have a look at this first. You know, let's put some things in place here before we start allowing this to seep through. I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but what I am saying is it does need the British law to have a look at it and go, okay, hang on a minute, let's let's address this first before we allow this to grow
And
or
we
get
should
pushed
allow
any
this
further,
to
if that makes sense.
happen.
In a democratic
England.
manner. I'm not saying just to eliminate it completely.
There is some place in
We
this
should be allowing
area
all
that
these
the
heads,
police,
these
well, we all
face
know now,
coverings
it's
and
called the
things. This has
no-go
got a good
area.
job
the
with
no-go
face
zone, right?
covering
And
stuff
in this
now.
area happens to,
I mean,
they
if I
happen
want
to have their
digital
own
ID,
law
I'm gonna say
basically,
digital
where,
ID
where
and
if
they've got
something
face
was to
coverings
happen
on.
there, they would just go
If
and
you want
protest
ban
and
it,
just
if you
riot
want
stuff.
ban
Some
it,
might
ban
be
it.
justified, some, well, most of them are not justified.
And don't
like
do
burning
anything
the
about
bus, like
it.
flipping a police car. That's a public property. We pay for that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think that sounds to
We
me
pay for
more
them.
like
Well,
a sort of a
not just me,
vigilante
but I
world
mean,
where people can
people
just,
have-
choose to do what they
everywhere.
want to do in terms of the law.
I pay
I
for
think
it,
that's a
but
major
you're not gonna
issue,
pay
and
for
I
that
think
with
that
tax. No matter
that
what
is
I
definitely
do,
something
I'm
that needs to
gonna
be
do
addressed,
So you pay for it, no
by the
matter
court
what.
of law, at least, to understand
I pay
how
for
it's
what
gotten to
round
that. I think
after.
to understand how it's got there, we need to see where we're coming from. And again, that's not only to do with
You know.
policy, but I call it the Tony Blair version of 2, which is the first time that Tony Blair was in office, he was very much open
Tony
borders
Blair,
about
exactly.
this thing.
Thank
This
you.
is Tony Blair's
Yeah, but
legacy
where
that we're
did
living
Tony
through
Blair
right now.
get
This
that
is what
from?
he
Where
wanted.
did Tony
Open
Blair
borders,
get that from?
mass immigration,
Yeah, but we can't just blame
to
Tony
support
Blair.
our
Who radicalised
labourers and
Tony
our
Blair?
foundations. That's
Where
not
did them
what it
plans
means at
come
all. And I
from
think that
before
we're now
Tony
seeing the
Blair
second
came
version of
in?
that, the second iteration of
Because
that coming through on a macro
he's
economic
got-
scale.
But some people might argue that it's also a conservative problem as well, because the Conservatives were there for like 14 years, right?
Yeah, but
and
we
they
got
haven't
before
done,
them.
they
We've
haven't
got to
changed
go
anything.
before.
And
That's
since
No, they
like,
haven't.
1998,
Yeah,
1997,
98, you haven't changed
that's
anything.
when he
Why?
got in. So
Yeah.
you would argue, some people might say, hey, it's also these guys as well. They accept the same thing.
No,
Yeah,
they're not.
I mean, they've certainly, the Conservatives have
They got
definitely
set up
exacerbated
by
the issue,
Labour,
but the problem is
by
with the
Tony
Conservative
Blair.
Labour Party now is that they're cut from the same cloth. They're both the same. If you look at their policies and their manifesto, they're basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Conservatives have become less conservative over the past 2 decades, and we're looking at 2 forms of socialist parties right now. That's what they are.
Why?
Which is why we've seen the emergence of reform. Is because they've gone, oh right, well they're quite similar. Let's have something new, and then we've had 4 million
Why
people
all that?
subsequently vote for reform because they
You're
actually
gonna see
represent
now
something
when
that's
this-
more
when
right
this
to
new-
centre. So
Yeah, but
I think
you're
that's
gonna
been
see
allowed
now
to
this
happen
new
based on
voting system
socialist
could be
policies for
different
sure.
because King Charles and the
that
royal
if we
family
was
ain't
to
gonna be
change
there.
this first past the poll, we'll
Well,
probably get Nigel Farage in there
William
in
will be. I hope
2029.
Prince
Do you
will
think
be.
that
Yeah.
that could be possible?
I think
I mean,
that
I
is
have
more than
a
possible.
lot
And
of
I think
hope
after
for
we've had
Prince
4
William.
years of
I just
Starmer,
hope
I
he
think you'll be
hasn't
seeing
been
a lot of
woke by
people
King
pushing
Charles
very hard right. And as I
and
say, that's
changed
something
his
I'm
religion and
concerned about
things,
because
and
you don't get the good without the bad. And
he's
unfortunately,
gonna come and
because of
step
how
up
things
to
are going
the
to go in the
plate
next 4
and
years,
do
you're
a
going to see
good job of
extreme
being
right
king.
individuals, dare I say, almost neo-Nazi types coming out of the woodwork going, yeah, like get rid of them all, blah, blah, blah.
I
That's
was
not
gonna
what I
say
want
do a
either.
good,
I would
do a
consider
good job
myself a
of being the
conservative
king for
liberal. I
Britain
wouldn't
because
consider
he's not
myself a
English, he's
far-right
British.
individual or just overly right because I believe in
For
fairness, but I
British
also believe in
king,
diplomacy
the
and
British
democratic
king,
society
not
with
the
something
English
that is
royal family,
just.
it's the
So
British.
equality of outcome is a terrible
That's why
doctrine.
they said
Equality of
British,
opportunity
yeah.
is a good thing, but trying to level the
Well, I
playing
told
field
you,
for everybody,
they
that's
emigrated
not,
to
it should be
the
based on burden of
fucking
performance.
Right. Well, we have seen
Germany,
that kind of shift where a lot of people are shifting that side, and it's only a matter of time till the young generations go that side, and we all know how the young generations are. They usually don't think with their brain; they just go out there.
Absolutely.
My
The
family's
generations
got over
behind
a thousand years.
I don't know about you, but I'm in that
got a lot more
generation.
history than the
I'm
royal family
21,
actually
20.
got.
Sorry,
Oh,
I'm
okay,
22.
okay.
I'm
Fair enough.
They-
Yeah, I'm a bit
they're
older
not
than you, so
rich
yeah.
and
No, to be
money-wise.
honest with you, I think,
Maybe,
as I say, I think a lot of young people feel
maybe not in
disenfranchised,
some
and
ways,
certainly from the messages
but
I
in
received
a
from that
lot
post,
of ways
I've had
for
a bunch of
history,
21 and 22-year-olds that
things
are asking
like
questions
this
as
have got
to how to
more
prepare
than the royal
themselves
family
when they
have
enter
got.
the world as a young
As
adult. And I think
emigration,
that there are
things
genuine
like this,
concerns
the
there that aren't being
royal
addressed
family,
by our politicians. That's their job. That's not my job. That's their job to be addressing these issues. And
We
the
have
fact that you've got
emigrated
people
a
that
lot,
can deduce from what's going on that this is going to be a
And
problem
they have
for them
had a
as
lot
they
more
grow
money
up.
than
But that's
my
a problem.
family.
Like, you've got young people coming out to people talking on
Because they
TikTok
took
and
all
going,
the young
how do we
people
fix
like
this?
my
Because
family.
my local MP isn't
All of
addressing
me
my
granddad,
problems.
they
So
took
what else are we
England
supposed to
over
do?
from
You know, stand
Germany.
around with our hands behind
They
us type
shouldn't
like
have.
That's a joke. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, this is why
Absolutely
we've been taking
ridiculous.
over. One
And I
thing,
think
but
that,
one fucking royal
yeah,
family
no,
guy
I
from
just think that,
Germany.
those people,
fucking
I
have
care
him
deeply
one
about
back.
others, and I think that's, I'm
Because
very
once we break
compassionate in
away
that way,
from
and I just don't
Germany
think
and
it's fair
France,
for young
we can
people
have
to
England
go through
back.
a lot of hardship right now. It's going to get tough out there. Like, the last generation,
Well,
before
yeah, we
us,
need to
they
go
had
break
access to
fucking
housing, they had
France
access
in.
to easy mortgages. It was a much easier life when they were our age, between the ages of 21 to, let's say, 35. Now,
it was
with
hard.
the rate of inflation, no one's catching up, even with their high-paying jobs. No one can catch the rate of inflation, which means we're living in an inflationary world where no one can survive under this level of pressure. So you've got all these financial constraints, as well as all these social issues
own
that are not being
children, you're only a
addressed. Like,
child.
you're asking for chaos, personally.
He's
If
only
you keep
40,
this up,
but
there's
you're
going to be
40,
civil
40,
uprising in this
40,
country.
I'm
And as I say, it's
43.
got nothing to do with
So we
race
come
and
back
everything
4
to do
years,
with
3
the
or 4
quality
years
of life. You've
between,
got energy
he's only
crises
like
going on where people
23.
can't even afford to pay their
So
bills.
you're
And there's just a lot of issues here that are
20
under
years
pressure.
older than
On
me,
top of that, we've got the
Bracco.
migratory issues
So
as well.
me
You
and
can't
him
just
are
have
at
an
the
open
same
border and allow
ages,
people to come in
roughly.
and do
Yeah,
as they
so
do
we're the
without
same
oversight
ages,
and without some
roughly.
kind of imbalance going on,
More
which
or
is
less.
exactly
Well, a
what's
couple of
happening now.
years older
So
than
now
myself,
seeing people
but
running to social media, belting out their complaints, such as myself, and raising some legitimate concerns that need to be addressed by our
yeah,
politicians. So
stabbings
I think it's
and
only going to
women
get
being
worse and
raped and
get a lot
stuff,
more
children
severe
being
over the next, let's say,
raped
4
and
years from
abused.
now, for sure. Absolutely.
And people
I
being stabbed
completely
and
agree
other
with that.
things.
Sticking with
And
that,
a lot of
with
other
that topic,
things
I
as
think it's
well,
all,
mate.
well,
There's,
here's
it's
my
not just
perspective,
that, is
my
it? It's
perspective on this. I
NHS,
think it's
there's
all about
the benefits,
prioritizing the people
the
inside.
jobs,
Because
there's
what we've seen in
everything.
Ireland,
There's too
Dublin,
many
is
people
insane.
in
It's the
this
fact that they are
country.
building, they are investing a lot of money, well,
Yeah, but
people's
we've got
money,
too many
taxpayers'
people on
money
the land,
into
we haven't got
helping
enough
illegal
land.
immigrants, people who have broken their
Yeah,
laws.
and
Yeah.
them
Now
ones,
here
they
in
should
the
be going
UK,
back.
we're basically
No, I'm
doing the same thing
sorry,
where
but
Keir
they should have
Starmer
built
obviously
jails
scrapped the
in other
London plan,
countries.
which is what we're
I
going to get
don't
to
care,
now.
it's not
Now
our
he has
problem.
no
Build
plan.
the
He's trying
jails
to hire
there.
somebody. Nobody wants to take that job because it is a hard job. Because every day you're going to get
Yeah.
like, what are you doing? What are you doing to fix it? What are you doing to
Yeah,
fix it?
no
Nobody
one's
wants
to
that
take
job.
the,
And
but being
so
bored
that
of a
way,
job
whoever
person.
comes
Yeah.
in gets to stay. And how do they get to stay?
It's like the
Because
Rooney
people like
gang
us, people like
situation.
you who
Nobody
are
wants
paying
to
their
take that
taxes,
job
fund
on
these
because
people.
everybody's
And we
getting
have
penalised when
homelessness
they
going
do.
up to the roof.
When
We
they
have child
fucking do get into the
poverty
Rooney
going up
gangs
to
a
the
bit,
roof.
and
But
they
we're still
do,
bringing more people in.
like,
We give them
I was going to
houses,
say,
we give them money, and
you know,
most of
make
them
a bit
don't
of
even want to
progress
go
or
to work.
something.
What
They
do you
fucking
think
care
is
about.
happening here? Because it seems like they
And
don't
they
really
call
care
them
about the
something
people
like
inside.
that.
Why is that?
Yeah.
I've always said this about politicians.
Why is that?
They're cut from a different cloth. I mean, a lot of these guys, they grew up indoctrinated into the
Yeah,
world of politics. A lot of
indoctrinated
these
like
guys are
King
Italians
Charles,
and they went
see?
to schools that a
I'm
lot
a
of politicians
fucking
went to before them.
Tony
And so
Blair.
that's also
King
part of our
Charles
culture,
was
which I dare I
indoctrinated
say is a
just
little
the
bit
same.
detrimental. I don't think it pays dividends to a 21st
No,
century
and he's a
Britain. I think the
thick
system
twat.
that's in place now
King
does
Charles
not
doesn't know
work for a
fucking
democratic
anything.
society in 2024.
He's not very clever. I
So
thought
if
he
you,
did.
I always use
I
this as an
thought
example,
he
but I
fucking
remember
did
when Cameron
interface
went
and
out
all that.
and
Not
was
very
doing some
much he
public
didn't.
talks and discussions and went to go and meet his constituents,
Yeah.
right? I can't tell you how awkward that man looked in front of local people. He was so out of place and so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it's all over YouTube. I remember watching it. I was like, Jesus, these people are so far removed from reality. They've got no idea about their own constituents. So again, what goes on in the House of Commons is a bubble. It does not reflect what truly goes on in real world England, which is why I've always advocated for a presidential system in this country. I think a presidential system in the UK would be far more effective than the Houses of Commons, the House of Lords. That entire system needs to be scrapped. It doesn't work. It's completely nonsensical.
Yeah, because nothing
You
works.
know, it's all about
Remember,
tradition and
nothing
history
works.
and blah blah blah.
It's all about
their
history,
end,
but they
whatever.
want to
That doesn't work
remake.
anymore.
They want to erase
that is
history and
why
rewrite
we're seeing
it.
this disparity between the government not addressing local issues.
No, it's
and
all about history when
prioritising
it comes to
immigration
them. What?
reform, immigration
Crown.
issues primarily, and housing all these people. Because you have to remember
What about
the
the
funding
Crown
that
and
we
this
are
and
putting
this
up
and
to
that?
the Ukraine as well as the United
Yeah,
States. Someone's
Ukraine.
getting back end money.
Yeah,
off of
who's
that.
getting
we know,
that
as
money?
we know, that Boris
It's not
Johnson
fucking us.
stopped Zelensky from signing a treaty deal with Putin that would be a ceasefire deal to deal with this situation. He stopped that because he was trying to allow, dare I say, the Biden administration as well as BlackRock and Vanguard and all those other people
all them
to go
other
in,
people
invest
so we
in money
fucked
in
us
the
over.
infrastructure rebuild. So that's why, and I'm pretty sure that
That we built, so we
he got
built
a piece of the
it,
pie.
and
Absolutely,
he
he got a piece of the pie for that. A lot of people think that's relatively controversial. I don't at all.
No,
I think
it's
that
not.
the Americans and the British over the past, dare I say, since Iraq War, I think we've been just destabilising nations and causing absolute riots.
Right, I'm sorry, I'll just have to rewind this little bit because I paused it for a second or two.
The Biden administration, as well as BlackRock and Vanguard and all those other people.
I'll tell you what, I'll just go up to here somewhere. There we go.
On my culture, which I dare I say is a little bit detrimental. I don't think it pays dividends to a 21st century Britain. I think the system that's in place now does not work for a democratic society in 2024. So if you, I always use this as an example, but I remember when Cameron went out and was doing some public talks and discussions and went to go and meet his constituents, right? I can't tell you how awkward that man looked in front of local people. He was so out of place and so uncomfortable. Like, it's all over YouTube. I remember watching it. I was like, these people are so far removed from reality. They've got no idea about their own constituents. So again, what goes on in the House of Commons is a bubble. It does not reflect what truly goes on in real world England, which is why I've always advocated for a presidential system in this country. I think a presidential system in the UK would be far more effective than the Houses of Commons, the House of Lords. That entire system needs to be scrapped. It doesn't work.
The green chairs, like I've said before.
you know,
And
it's all about
everything else
tradition and
can
history
go
and blah, blah,
that
blah,
old, it's
my
never
rear end,
changing,
whatever.
it
That
never
doesn't
is
work
changing.
anymore. And that is
And
why
we
we are
need to
seeing
get
this disparity
rid.
between the government not addressing local issues
They
first
don't
and
address
prioritising
anything.
immigration reform, immigration issues primarily, and housing all these people. Because you have to remember, the
housing
funding
them,
that we are putting
feeding
up
them.
for the Ukraine, as well as the United States,
Yeah,
someone's
as
getting
well
back
as
end
of
money
all
off of
this
that. We
for
know,
fucking
as we
illegal
know, that Boris
immigrants,
Johnson
where I mean,
stopped
all the money for
Zelensky
them,
from
all the
signing
money
a
for
treaty
illegals
deal
and
with
everything.
Putin that would
No wonder
be
the
a
country's
ceasefire
got
deal to
no
deal with this
money.
situation. He stopped that because he was trying to allow,
Why?
dare
Why
I say,
did they
the
stop
Biden
it?
administration,
Yes,
as well as BlackRock and Vanguard and all those other
So they
people to go
caused
in,
it
invest in
England
money in
and
the
the
infrastructure
fucking
rebuild. So that's why,
Europe,
and I'm
like
pretty
I've
sure
already
that
said with Russia and Ukraine.
he got a piece of the pie.
It was
Absolutely, he got a piece
Europe.
of the pie for
We
that.
started
So a lot
COVID
of people think that's
and we
relatively
did
controversial. I don't
this
know.
with
I think
Russia
that the
and
Americans and the
Ukraine.
British over the past, dare I say, since Iraq War, I think we've been
Since the Iraq
destabilising
War,
nations
we've
and
been
causing
fucked.
absolute riots and havoc everywhere to have some sort of financial and political gain. I think we've been doing that for a very long time. We've destabilised practically all of the Middle East since the mid-80s. That's what we've done.
Mid-80s, thank you, and I've said
see what's going on in France now. There's literally riots happening.
There's nothing in France left. It's gone.
Incidents happening left and right. People don't even want to. They don't feel safe in
Don't
Paris.
feel safe in England.
Stick with that topic as well.
Well, I mean, France is bad, but England's just gone as bad.
I would argue the only person
France
that
is a lot
actually went out
worse.
there
Germany and France are a lot worse than England. They are. I must admit, they are.
And the Reform Party.
We are not far off.
Talking to businesses, talking to people
and
at
I
work.
don't know who they're talking to because they're not fucking talking to anyone good, are they?
I mean, I agree. And I think that
Charles,
this is also another point that people need to understand is that Nigel
He's not quite moaning now. He should have moaned a long time ago.
Primarily based on a populist vote as well.
Sadiq
He's a character that people can rally behind. Keir Starmer is not that guy. Keir Starmer is the guy that you see at an accountant's office that works in the back room. Like, he's not a leader. So it's very difficult to relate to Keir Starmer.
King Charles ain't the king was too much of a mummy's ass.
Which that's a story for another
King
time.
Charles is a mummy wet
the issue is that you've got to have some sense of leadership. You've got to have leadership qualities, but you also have to have a voice that transcends across the nation. Keir Starmer is not that guy.
Nope.
Okay?
Bearing in mind 80% of people didn't vote for him,
including people that didn't go to the ballot box.
I think William has got the what it takes. I think William's got what it takes to be a
clever in the way
leader.
that him and Mr. Tice, Richard Tice, pushed reform
a lot of
on
people
social
are saying
media.
about
Now, this is something that I think that the other two parties could take a leaf out of their book for. Is that they're so disconnected with reality that they don't even realise the way to win the young people over is to be on TikTok, be on social media. It's incredible the rally campaign that Reform had on TikTok. It was incredible. Like, the music they used, the way that they talked about their policies, it was very inviting. It was very interesting. And a lot of people think this is really cool. Like, I'm going to get behind these people because it's relevant.
Probably with Prince Andrew. This is what they're arguing with Prince Andrew.
That's something that the other two parties don't do.
That is true. Because we've seen it here in the general election. You can only get thrown milkshake on your face if you're out there in the public, right?
Absolutely. yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to stick on this one because it is a hard topic and it's very insane to even think that these politicians are not even working for the people that think elected them. Now, Keir Starmer came out a few months ago saying that he prefers to speak at Davos, the World Economic Forum, than at Westminster. And bear in mind, he works for us. We're the one that put him there. So he should love being in that place and talk and pass the bills and negotiate and discuss what they should do for the nation. Why is that? Why do you think they all lean into doing all these world stuff like the net zero? They focus on the wrong, on the things that doesn't really impact the day-to-day people. Like, I don't think somebody like James right now, let's say James is working as a construction, do you think he's thinking about global warming or anything? No, he's thinking about feeding his kids, paying his bills, and putting petrol in his car so he can get to work the next day. And hopefully he gets to retire early. But why are we not prioritizing that?
Well, as I said to you before, there is a disconnect between politicians and their constituents. And when these politicians spend a lot of time at cabinet members and finally get a chance to be prime minister, there is a sense of self-success there. And I think that can't be ignored. And I think that talk about Davos and all these other things, COP28 or whatever the next one's going to be. This is a business opportunity for Keir Starmer. So when he goes to Davos, he's rubbing shoulders with people to make deals that he can benefit from them whilst he's in office for 4 years. Remember, these guys only have a term of 4 years before there's a re-election coming up. So in that time, they're going to maximise their ability to do what they can gain in that time versus what they can do for the people people, simply because I think people are confused as to how politicians operate now. They say that they're public servants, but not really. It's primarily these days, it's for their own political gain and to try and advance their own career in a short space of time. They've got no interest in dealing with current domestic issues within the UK. They've got absolutely no interest in that because they know that time is finite. 4 years is going to go like that, and they're going to prioritise what they think is going to be the best outcome. And unfortunately, most politicians are very short-sighted. They don't look at the big game. They don't look at the long picture, and they are interested in the average guy. They don't care, and I think that's something that people need to understand. They don't care about you when they're making policy changes. You think they're doing that because they care about John or Mark who works at the office? They don't give a damn about you. So I think people would be wise to do their due diligence, do their homework, and understand that the system that we have in place today,
how is he going to care about anyone else if he can't care about Prince Harry and William?
That we need a presidential system here because it's far more personal and it's far more integrated into what the local, indigenous, or people that moved here when they were young, people care about this nation first, which is why I advocate that. I think that's a very good point.
This one's going to be a bit hard.
He doesn't do anything.
I don't know about you. What do you think about the current monarchy that we have? Because for me, I don't understand what he's done. I'm not going to tell you what I think. What do you think about it? Because our king, God save the king, of course, his net worth just went up by 100%. Now he's a billionaire. He was worth 500 million, literally 2 weeks ago.
No, I don't think he should be.
He's a billionaire now. King Charles. And the NHS is suffering. And all these public sectors suffering. We are policing, sometimes they're not getting the proper training.
King Charles has got everybody's money.
What do you think is...
I'm sorry, I can't stand it.
Because obviously you said you would prefer to have a presidential way to
do it. He's got every fucker's money. He don't help no one.
I think
apart from
yes
Islam.
And no, I think that certainly with William at least, I think that he's a bit more adaptable to what modern day monarchy would look like compared to Charles. Obviously, Charles is still, I think he's still very much part of the way the old system used to work. To be honest with you, I think that it's a time for the monarchy to step up and take some initiative, really. I think that if that's the kind of money they're bringing in, I think it would be very wise of King Charles at least to have a look at some of our policies, look at the defunding of the police, for example, and how our streets are not safe the way they used to be. And I'll leave this as an example. When I go out
everything I've said I've spoke about William and
most clubs now do have dog services right outside the door. So they've got people to be there for the sole reason of protecting people walking out that have watches and jewellery on because they know they're either going to get tailed on the way home or they're going to get robbed right outside the club. And these are high-end clubs. I'm not talking about some back-end alleys. I'm talking about nice places where these people target. And 9 times out of 10, as I've spoken to a lot of security there, they say, mostly they're all people that don't really speak English most of the time because they know, going back to what you said before about the monarchy thing, I do think that they should take a more active part in getting involved and stepping up their game. Certainly William as well, because obviously he's next in line. If that means raising money for funds to NHS or emergency services, that's the backbone of this country. These people are the unsung heroes.
And that's part of their fucking part. Royal family part of that.
It's stupid, but every time I look at these nurses,
the military,
these people that have nursed me back to health, they deserve better. They simply deserve better, and they don't get it. They simply don't get it.
They're paying for the Royal Navy, they're paying for the fucking...
100% agree with you, because most of my family members are work in a hospital.
Well, I'm going to say, but King Charles should be the one that's doing the charity for that.
To do good in school, which obviously I see the struggle that they go through, and when they come back home, their feet is hurting because they've been standing there for 12 hours. They've been helping whoever came through, like their loved one, without being discriminating, what colour, whatever it is.
The advocate for the veterans, and he's not paying.
Absolutely.
He should be the
taxes, or maybe increase their wages, something like that. It seems like it's just going to some of our campaigns.
I mean, it's logical, isn't it? I mean, if you think about it logically, those are things that we should be doing to support the foundations of our country. At least look after the people that protect you and keep you safe. Police, fire, emergency services, paramedics, those guys are like, they're like a royal family. They drive around in their own car with their little backpack on, saving people in the streets. Like, this is a logical reaction. It shouldn't take rocket science to come up with these solutions to say, look, let's make sure we've got this taken care of so that at least we've got people safe, protected, and can be nursed back to health. At the very basic level, transport for London is another one. Like, those things should be heavily funded because it's things that most people use. Why would you take money away from something that most people use? Why would you take money away from our military services in the Navy, the Army, the Royal Air Force?
Well, we haven't got any.
The leader of the Royal Air Force.
Thank you,
make a
King
woke
Charles'
response saying, because I'm a pilot by profession, saying, we don't have enough ethnic minorities fighting planes. Do you think warfare cares about your colour? Come on. Warfare is warfare. Okay, warfare doesn't go, oh no, that person's brown, we won't shoot.
Well, that's what I've
But
just said.
no.
COVID doesn't go, you're brown, you're not getting coronavirus. Don't go about race calling religion.
This isn't
Might as well
rocket
put it in the
science, you know?
bin, that's
It's
what
so
I've
stupid
said.
to think about it that nowadays they prefer not
Because the
somebody who's
dinosaurs
good.
were here
They're like,
before us
okay,
all.
oh, we got two
And they
whites,
there was
oh,
no
we need
colour,
one-
race and
one
religion
black
with
guy, and we
dinosaurs.
need one
Yeah. Or we need some, multicolored transgender here
We
just so
don't
that we can
need
feel more
all that
proportionate.
at
Like, I'm
all.
sorry, no.
No.
Warfare doesn't care about your colour, creed, or sexual orientation.
He doesn't care if you've got
Doesn't care.
cancer. He doesn't care if you're old. He doesn't care if you're
Let's
young.
move
He doesn't
into
care whatever
Sadiq
you've
Khan,
got.
right? You
What
were
if
very
you haven't
vocal
got?
about Sadiq Khan is London because
Yeah.
as we speak right now, as of
And Sadiq
April
Khan,
2024,
why
this
King
year,
Charles
Liverpool
give him
came
an
out.
ankle?
Out of
There's the
thousands of
question.
people that are out
I
there,
want
let's
to
say
know,
1,000
I'm sick
people
of the
are there,
bullshit
106
AI keeps
people
telling
will
me,
be
Google.
assaulted, and that could be
What for?
violent,
King
that could
Charles
be
has
sexual,
fucking
that could
changed
be
his
all
religion,
these sort
that's
of things that's
exactly what
happening
it's
in
for.
London, and it's
Yeah.
causing,
Yep.
it's getting to the point where this year 9.5
Sadiq Khan
millionaires
has done
are leaving
fuck
the
off for
country
England
because
or
they are
London.
unsafe. Of course, the last report that we've seen
What
is
has he
like two
really done
suitcases
apart
of
from
people in
create
the
it?
body parts in the bag, silly
Body
stuff.
bags,
I see.
One
I heard
guy-
that last week.
Yeah, one guy going
fucking
around with a bow and arrow.
machetes,
What the heck?
Yeah.
All these
With a
things.
your
crossbow,
rape
yeah.
gangs, your
Yeah.
grooming
Yeah,
gangs, your
so
boy
we've had
gangs,
Sadiq
your
Khan for a
shooting
long
gangs,
time
your
now.
knife
obviously,
gangs,
and
you've got
he's still got his time to
mental
come
health
as well.
issue
What do you think
people.
of his London
You've
today?
got that
To be
many
honest with
things
you,
going
I
on.
think
It's
Sadiq Khan is
unbelievable.
I think
And
he's a
Sadiq
result of
Khan
bad policy again, but I think he's snuck his way
is a
in through
twat.
a lot of financial campaigning,
Yeah.
which he's still paying for now. Which is why
Muslim
we're seeing the
vote,
expansion of
Islam
UNIS,
vote
okay?
by King
This
Charles.
man, I think at the moment, is probably the public enemy number one, probably for
Yeah.
London and soon to be the UK,
Yeah.
because
And he's
the
just
stuff
like
that he's
Starbucks.
implementing is killing.
And King Charles.
Don't
All
be
three of
confused.
them
It's
think,
killing
get
our
out.
Certainly when it comes to ULEZ expansion, you've got what people
And
that have
take
been
the rest
driving
of them with him.
into
David
passively
Lammy
into
and
London
the
for
fucking
2-3
rest of them.
decades.
Stick
He's
them
now
all.
making that borderline impossible.
Yeah.
So people have to choose between giving up their day job of working as a labourer in London or giving up their car because they can't afford to operate both without coming into London to work.
Yeah, and then
his
you don't want to
response
get on the
that
tram and the
was,
train
we're
because you
doing
might
this
get
because
stabbed.
it will reduce CO2
There you
emissions.
go,
We
so
know
I'm not
that
leaving
all of the
Bury.
information surrounding the CO2
This is why I can't get a
was
job.
faulty. We know that it was addressed, and he ignored this, but it was addressed and said, look, we
Because
know
I'm a woman, I'm
your
not
cabinet
safe.
has tampered with
Going on
information
public
with regards to
transport.
CO2. This
Any
has no
public
bearing
transport.
or any change.
I go to
by not
Manchester,
only increasing
April,
ULEZ,
Moss
but
with
bringing the speed limit down to
It's
20 miles an
been
hour?
stamped
Absolutely
up
not.
there,
If anything,
you
it's
know,
causing more
last
traffic,
night.
more pollution, and
Yesterday.
more problems. And the issue is when you reduce the speed to
And
20
that
miles
goes
an hour,
past the
one thing
tram
I do is I
station
drive
or
every
whatever.
day, it's much
It
harder
could
to
be
figure out if
anything.
someone's slowing
You
down
could
to
get on
let
the
you
tram
pass
and they
if
could
you're driving
be
at 20
coming
miles
to
an hour
murder
than if
anybody
you're
else.
driving at
I
30.
don't know.
So anticipation is also an issue that he's not addressing at all. But I've
Yeah.
seen many accidents happen this way. So
Yeah,
I personally
and
think
no
all
one's
his policies
addressing
in
anything.
London are
None
dying.
of them
And
are
the
addressing any
the
of it.
funding cuts for police and the politicisation of the police is also,
Yeah.
he's directly responsible
Why?
for that as well. And the
But
increased
why?
crime.
So he's
When we
been there.
need the police,
he's
obviously,
been there
more
before,
with
right? He's
equipment.
made the mess
Proper
before.
equipment,
He still
proper
got him
police.
elected.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well,
And not fucking
as I
fart
say,
police,
and,
like you
you
say,
know, this is something
dealing
that you
with
raised
tweets.
before about, we've
We're
got
not dealing with
Islamic,
people
potential
like
Islamic
us gonna say,
politicians
oh,
coming through to
piss
uphold
off,
Sharia
huh?
law. I mean, I don't know
I
if that's
don't like
possible,
what you're
but we're
saying,
also
no,
seeing a
we're not
growing
there,
number
but
of
what?
Islamic people
Well,
supporting Sadiq Khan, which is why he's in the position he is. I
to
think
be
that he has
racist.
the vast majority of the Muslim
I'm
vote,
not
which makes up
racist.
for a lot of pockets of
But
London.
to
And I
be
think a lot of
racist,
people
he's
went
not
out of their
against
way
the
to
law.
vote for him when it came
He's
to the
not against
mayoral
the law.
re-election process.
I
And
don't
not
see
a
how
lot of
that
Brits,
is against the
annoyingly,
law.
don't
It's
vote.
not.
Again, we know
It's
80%
not
of British
nice.
people did not go out and vote. This
But
is
it's
what
not
happens when you
against the
don't
law.
vote. And, you know, I
Unless
think
you go
within the
and
Muslim community, they are
advocate and
acutely
be
aware of that. They
violent
know that most
towards
British people that
somebody
are born
because
here don't go out
of
and
their
vote. I
colour,
didn't up until I was about
then
23. Before that, I was like, oh, what's the point?
that's
I'm
the law.
going to
But to
make a
be
change. Yeah,
racist
your
isn't
vote
against the
makes a
law.
difference. That's the problem. And people don't think it does.
And
It
anybody
actually
can be
does.
I
racist
think
in
you're
any
speaking
different
the
fucking
truth,
way.
though, because
Don't matter
I went
because
to
you're
obviously
white,
cast my vote
you're
in this
racist.
general
Don't
election,
matter
and
because
when I
you're
went
fucking
there, I was
Muslim,
expecting
you're
to
not
see a lot
racist.
of people in the line, a lot of people
Yeah.
in
Anyway,
ballot box in that
basically,
place.
being
But you know
racist is
who was there?
discrimination.
Those
It's
two ladies, and
discriminating
both of them were
against
working
somebody.
there. Nobody at
It's
all.
classed
And I
as
stuck around to see
discrimination.
maybe there's going to be a
He
lot of lads that's
discriminated against one because of the colour, or maybe because of the religion, or because of the background, or because maybe how they
cast
look.
my vote. Obviously, I ticked on that reform vote.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens a
So,
lot
likewise.
in DAI, doesn't it?
And I walked
Discriminate
out,
against
and it was
everybody.
silent. Nobody around.
And that's why nobody
It
can
seemed
get
like
a
they had
job.
like a
Yeah.
Nobody will go in there.
Nobody will
and you
go
could see
anywhere.
that there was not that many footprint that went there because they had cakes. You see, they had cakes around.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm assuming if you go there, you probably pick up a cake. And guess what? All those cakes were still there. So it just shows that nobody has been there yet.
Well, this is the the issue, and this is why I think it's
If
so
I'd been there,
important
wouldn't
that
have been the case I'd have
we
asked.
locate the population of young people and we address people on the objective reality of what's going on, which is why I did the video. And as I say, that's how you pull the younger generation in and make them understand the consequences of not being proactive. So as a result of that, Reform has done a very good job of pushing their campaign and their manifesto on TikTok. I think it's brilliant. But again, the other two parties don't really do that. And so you don't really see much Labour or Conservative presence online in that regard. But I think that's a way of captivating and capturing the younger person's votes is by being in the areas where they operate, which is TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a lesson that politicians really should be picking up on to make sure that we grab a larger group of people next time round for the election coming up in 4 years.
This one is more of like it's personal to me, right? Because I had a lot of people that served not in this country, but in the background in Congo served in army, right? They love their country. They'll take a bullet for it, and they'll hate to see somebody burning their flag. And it was my uncle. He did really well. The guy had a bullet wound on him as well, and he still was happy for it. He's happy that he took the bullet for the country, right? But here, I see that when it comes to army, British army, right? We got this thing going on with Russia, right? Russia is getting aggressive. Russia has a lot of good friends back in there. We've got China in there, North Korea, we've got Iran. These guys don't like us, they hate us. They literally want to take us off the earth. They want to do anything to kill us, right? And Moscow is growing very, very, very big. And we got Ukraine. Now we got UK, right? We are involved in this war as well. We are obviously supplying them with our shipping and all these sort of things. With money as well. So, but here's a problem that I want to bring up as well. And I would like to get your take on this. Is British Army Force, their recruiting has reduced worse than ever. They can't get people to join the army. We need people to join the army.
And
so
my question is, how
come a lot of people don't feel the pride to go out there and take the bullet and go in the front line and defend their country?
There's an easy one really. They feel disenfranchised and they don't feel proportionately represented in government. And I think people have the ability to access information now that they probably weren't able to in the form of social media. So they can research how things took place. And as far as I'm concerned, if there was mandatory conscription, at this moment in time, I would not be comfortable fighting under this government based on not only their policy, but their negligence on the part that they have no interest in providing some kind of logical progression to protect their own first before bringing in others. And people are acutely aware of that, which is why we've seen such a massive drop in recruitment in the forces. Just to be clear, when I was younger, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. That's what I wanted to do. And I went to RAF Cranwell, sorry.
I would probably want to be. I probably would have wanted to be in the army.
And I didn't pass the medical. Again, I don't take that personal. There is a bar. If you don't meet that bar, that's it. Sorry, it's military. That's how it works. I took the civilian route and I ended up becoming an airline pilot. That's what I do for a living. But if I was to do that now, I just don't think that the current climate is conducive to have a force that's mentally strong and physically strong. We've masculinized women and we've feminized men. So it's very difficult now to see mass adoption or mass recruitments within the military forces. I believe a general famously said a couple of years ago from the US Army that England is no longer a tier 1 fighting force, and that we've got to the point now where things have reduced so much within our military that we could barely protect ourselves if it was necessary or required to at any time, which is why we're part of NATO, we're part of a bigger whole. So fortunately we've got other nations there. But I've got a bit of a controversial take on this. I think that in the West at least, I think we've lived long enough to become the villains. I don't think we're the good guys anymore. I don't think we're the good guys anymore. I think if you look at Iraq 1 and Iraq 2, and you see the way American goes in and destabilizes governments and put their own puppet governments in. I think we've lived long enough to become the villains. I think we're the aggressors now. I don't think we're the good guys, which is why you've got to be able to deduce from looking at the bigger picture as to what's going on. And I think that Russia in its own right is saying, look, you push further east than you said you would after the treaty. We need to clamp our foot down here. Enough's enough. Why are you on the border of Ukraine?
Yeah.
So, and Putin has a point there. I don't agree with how he's dealt with it. I don't agree with him sending in his troops. I think there could have been a more diplomatic approach to this. But, we're not...
Good God. Oh, God, what's done? I'll tell you one thing, though. I'm on Putin's side. I was going to say.
With how he's...
And I'm not like you say, in with all what he's done and the way he's done everything. But I'll tell you one thing, right? It was not Vladimir Putin that started the war in Ukraine. It was fucking UK and Europe. It was Germany, France. I'm fucking telling you, it was bastard Macron, France and England. Yeah, it was. Mainly England, I'll bet. With fucking France and a bit of Germany. Yep. And that's why we're having to take all these illegals in. Because we've probably fucked up somewhere and now we're fucking up again. And yeah, because they just keep doing that. Because of King Charles, Hitler's in the rooms.
That England is no longer a tier 1 fighting force, and that we've gotten to a point now where things have reduced so much within our military that we could barely protect ourselves if it was necessary or required to at any time, which is why we're part of NATO, because we're part of a bigger whole. So fortunately, we've got other nations there. But, you know, I've got a bit of a controversial take on this. I think that in the West, at least, I think we've lived long enough to become the villains. I don't think we're the good guys anymore. I don't think we're the good guys anymore.
No, we're not any good guys anymore, because we're the bad guys. Because I tell you what, you're saying we've got other nations, yeah, but the other nations, unfortunately, like America, they've got their own fucking problems. America's got enough illegal immigrant problems and enough wars going on for themselves, to deal with for themselves. So they ain't going to come and fucking save England now, are they, when they've got enough going on for themselves? And I can't, like I've already said, what, France and fucking Germany? What, saving England? I don't fucking think so. We would beat France and, well, we probably wouldn't even beat France and fucking, we probably wouldn't even beat France anymore in a fucking war. That's how pathetic England's gone. This is what I mean. Yeah, but England, Ireland and the Scottish people and things, all together, that's why we called it the British Isles eventually, because when we all went to war with France and Germany, you know, everybody come from all the islands, all of Britain, all of the British Isles. That's why it became the British Isles, because everybody came off the islands from all over the island to fight Germany and France and the wars wherever. Yeah, obviously before all the big wars, when it was just the little wars in, well, England and Scotland and England and Wales and England and Ireland, they were probably wars. It probably was not, well, it was probably a war, like, but it wasn't a war. It was more like, I would call your football hooligan type of war to, you know, back in the day, a good punch up. People did get killed, probably, you know, beheaded or whatever. Fuck knows. Because, I mean, back then they were brutal, weren't they? They were brutal as they are now. I mean, to be honest with you myself, I think they probably were fucking not, well, there was just as brutal then as they are now. I was going to say they might not have been as brutal back then, but I'm just thinking, no, they would have been, they just chopped you up. So they just been as brutal as they are now by chopping you up now. Nowadays, you know what I mean? In just completely different ways. It's just completely different era, but it's all the fucking same.
Do so much within our military that we could barely protect ourselves if it was necessary or required to at any time. Which is why we're part of NATO, because we're part of a bigger whole. So fortunately, we've got other nations there. But, you know, I've got a bit of a controversial take on this. I think that in the West, at least, I think we've lived long enough to become the villains. I don't think we're the good guys anymore. I don't think we're the good guys anymore. I think if you look at Iraq 1, Iraq 2, and you see the way America goes in and destabilises governments and put their own puppet governments in. I think we've lived long enough to become the villains. I don't think I think we're the aggressors now. I don't think we're the good guys, which is why you've got to be able to deduce from looking at the bigger picture as to what's going on. And I think that Russia, in its own right, is saying, look, you push further east than you said you would after the treaty. We need to clamp our foot down here.
And they have
enough's enough. Why are you on the border of Ukraine?
Why are you on the border of Ukraine?
Why was that? Point there. I don't agree with how he's dealt with it. I don't agree with him sending in his troops. I think there could have been a more diplomatic approach to this. But, you know, we're not entirely innocent here on our side either, to be fair. And, you know, all you have to do is bring up the Nord Stream pipeline. I mean, we all know who blew that up. And it wasn't the Russians.
It wasn't the Russians. That wasn't the Russians when they first started the war.
It is a very complicated situation.
The university was not the Russians with the university.
It's pretty tricky one.
That university were holding something in there and they had to blow it up to get rid of evidence.
You anti-Britain, even though it's the truth. We've seen it with Nigel Farage. We've seen it with
No, it was. It's not
George
Russia's fault, this
Galloway
shit.
telling the truth, and everybody just thought these guys hate Britain. No, they are telling the truth. This is what happened. Boris Johnson went out there and he messed it up.
Yeah, he messed it up.
He messed
and
it up,
also, this is something that people don't know about, which was actually on a Sean Ryan
You've all
podcast a few months ago.
up, which I've been
There was
saying
a
like
British
King
special
Charles.
forces guy on there that was talking about the situation in Iraq, right? And one of the cabinet, it wasn't a cabinet minister, but it was someone who was tasked with inspecting weapons and WMDs in Iraq. And he went out there twice. This is a famous story now within the intelligence community anyway.
So he went out there the first time
and he said, look, there's nothing out here. So he went back and reported to Tony Blair, there is no weapons of mass destruction in that country. There's nothing there. He was like, all right, go out again and have a look. So he went out a second time, came back and reported to Tony Blair and said, look, I've done my job. There is nothing there that would make them a threat to the Western world. There are no WMDs. That same man was found in the woods a few weeks later with his throat and wrists cut in a forest somewhere, and he worked directly for Tony Blair. So, yeah, and this is a famous story. He's on a Sean Ryan show. This guy was an ex-special forces. I'm assuming he was SAS, but that was an insider job. So, yeah, so that was an inside job.
I didn't know about this. That's insane. But
So he went out twice, and and then after that he was killed. And this is I think it was a cabinet minister or something.
I think.
And that's why he went out and said there was nothing there because he wasn't going to report on it because he was going to get killed anyway.
Well, that's what I mean.
Why didn't he just say there was something there because he knows he was going to get killed anyway?
Right now is because
shit
really,
bagging away.
You know, I think this is what happens
should have said there was something there because you knew he was going to get killed.
And go about your business.
You know you're going to get killed. You know you're going to get murdered, mate. You might as well just fucking admit
doing it
it.
Because we're not in a position to sort of set our own path. But that's why we're seeing disparity on the streets. That's why we're seeing people raise their voices and say, look, this is not right. Something's wrong. Something needs to change. And that's why we're seeing this.
Things need to change and King Charles needs to go.
One more thing. This might be
Tony
very...
Blair and
I don't know if you want to speak on this, bro.